आज कश्मीर में हमारे सीआरपीएफ के बहादुर जवानों पर जो आतंकवादी हमला हुआ है वो पाकिस्तान स्थित और उनके द्वारा संरक्षित आतंकवादी संगठन जैश-ए-मोहम्मद ने किया है, जिसकी मैं और सारा देश भर्त्सना करता है। इस आतंकी हमले का समुचित जवाब देने के लिए सारा देश एकजुट है। हम अपनी जिम्मेदारियों को अच्छी तरह समझते हैं और देश की जनता को यह भरोसा देते हैं कि इस पर जो भी कार्रवाई करना आवश्यक है उसे करने में हम कोई कसर नहीं छोड़ेंगे। सीआरपीएफ देश का एक बहादुर और अग्रणी सुरक्षा बल है। देश की सुरक्षा और संप्रभुता की रक्षा के लिए इस बल ने समय समय पर बहुत कुर्बानियां दी हैं। जम्मू और कश्मीर में शांति और व्यवस्था कायम रखने में इस बल के योगदान की जितनी भी प्रशंसा की जाए वह कम है। आज कृतज्ञ भारत उन सभी वीर जवानों को जिन्होंने अपने प्राणों का बलिदान दिया है, उन्हें अपनी श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित करता है तथा इस कठिन घड़ी में उनके परिवारों के साथ पूरी तरह खड़ा है। हम शांति और अमन को भंग करने वालों के नापाक मंसूबों को नाकाम करने के लिए पूरी तरह से दृढ़ संकल्पित हैं। हम देश को आश्वस्त करना चाहते हैं।
Well, that was the Home Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, making a comment to the press, in a very strongly worded comment where he said the government will not leave any stone unturned. All necessary action will be taken and they will stop those who disturb the peace. Confirming for the first time that this attack was in fact conducted by the Jaish-E-Mohammed. Remember, the Jaish-E-Mohammed took credit for it, but this is the first time someone from government as high up as the Home Minister himself has confirmed that the Jaish-E-Mohammed in fact carried out this attack. He also paid his respects to the martyrs and he said that there will be a response a fitting response to this attack on the peace of Kashmir. He said, of course, that the CRPF are brave and strong force that has maintained the peace in the Kashmir Valley until now, and an attack on them is an attack on this country. Joining me on the show, Maruf Raza, strategic affairs expert and consulting editor at the Times Network. J.K. Verma is a defense expert. Colonel Amitabh Amit is former infantry officer. I welcome all of you to this conversation and I thank you for your time. I understand Mr. J.K. Verma joins us right now. Mr. Verma, thank you for joining us. You do understand, of course, very clearly the movement and the sort of modality behind defense movement in Kashmir. What about the nature of today's attack concerns you the most? What do you think the most pressing concerns are for us as a country right now?
First of all, I would like to pay my heartfelt condolences for the death of these brave CRPF soldiers. As far as this attack is concerned, this dastardly and cowardly attack done by Jaish-e-Mohammed on behest of ISI because of the Operation All Out, our Indian security forces were successfully eliminated the terrorists one by one. Every day, if you hear, we were exterminating their commanders, their leaders, and the people who are joining it. The shelf life of the terrorists is considerably reduced. The search and cordon operations are also very successful. That's why they have done this cowardly act, because to show that Jaish-e-Mohammed is still powerful and strengthened. By saying this, I will also like to say this is unfortunate that Jaish-e-Mohammed is able to have so much collected, so much of explosives, and were able to do it. According to newspaper reports, there were about 350 kilograms of explosives in that Scorpio car. This also has to be seen that why that car was kept there, because when this movement of this magnitude is going on, it would have been better if that is not there. However, I always feel that as ISI is being desperate, they are doing it, but India must take its revenge and there should be something, a lesson which they will remember.
J.K. Verma, you did, of course, say 350 kgs of explosives for the IED. The other question that arises at this point is the expertise to have assembled the explosive, the IED expertise. Is it from this side of the border? Has someone slipped in from the other side of the border in order to help actually configure this explosive or this bomb inside the car that was actually used today? Is that also reason for concern? Have there been, in your opinion, crossings, of bomb making or explosive experts or ID experts across the border over the last couple of months?
Yes, in fact, but I will always say that the infiltration in this type of border, it can be curbed, it can be lessened, but saying that it can be stopped completely is very difficult. The terrain in this area is very difficult. And when ISI plans this operation of this magnitude, then you cannot say that this explosive has come on. It is certain that this explosive has come by ISI. They have sent it. But exactly from where it is sent, you cannot say it, that it has come from Kashmir border, it can come from Punjab border, it can come from other country also, it can come from the border where we have no restriction, that means Nepal. So it is, we must give time to the security agencies to probe the matter from where it is come. At present it is saying that it has come from there, from that side of the border, is not correct. ISI has sent it, there is no doubt about it. Jaish-E-Mohammad is a pet of ISI, and they get not only the money and training, everything from ISI, and ISI is behind this operation. But I think some more time should be given to the security agencies to know the modus operandi from where and how this magnitude of
J.K. Verma, do you see this also as a failure of intelligence?
No, ma'am. This is certainly cannot be said as a failure of the intelligence. I myself was the intelligence for a long time, and I know that we get the information, but several times this happens that we do not get the pinpointed intelligence. But I have already read in the newspaper that the information was there that Jaish-E-Mohammad is planning some big operation. But exact date, time and place is difficult to ascertain.
Okay, Maruf Raza joins us as well now. Maruf Raza has patched in. Mr. Raza, thank you for joining us. The question, of course, that you just heard J.K. Verma say, he doesn't believe this was a failure of intelligence. He believes that while intelligence gets a trickle of information, it's difficult to exactly pinpoint what, why, where, or how the attack would happen, and hence difficult to prevent. Do you agree with him?
Well, everyone is going to protect his kind in an instance like this. But the fact of the matter is, intelligence doesn't come pinpointed, and if it comes, you're very lucky, and that eventuality will very rarely happen. What needs to be done is you need to put the jigsaw together, and therefore I always maintain it's not so much as a failure of intelligence per se, it is a failure of a number of issues that lead to a disaster of this kind. One of the big failures is of assessment. How do you make your assessment or your analysis is based on various telltale signs that begin emerging. I'll give you examples. The last 6 to 8 months had lot of instances in the news, and I'm talking what's there in the public domain. I don't hang around North and South Block. The fact of the matter is, lot of explosive caches were found. Then Mr. Verma has himself said that Jaish-E-Mohammad was planning a big attack. And Jaish-E-Mohammad's pattern of big attacks, we have known, has been in Uri, in Pathankot, elsewhere. They do target the military installations and not so much, or military personnel, and not so much high-profile civilian targets. So quite clearly, the military and the paramilitary should have been in a state of alert. You don't have attacks like this happening if your guard is up in terms of road protection, in terms of surveillance of the territory on which the convoys are going to go. If you have a large body of troops moving, and experience tells us, and we have a lot of experience in battling insurgencies from 1954 onwards, and if we still haven't learned our lessons, then we need to hang our heads in shame. If you're moving 2,400 troops, you don't need to move them like a barat. You need to move them in bits and pieces so that at no point of time the terrorist knows which is the most vulnerable target that would give him maximum dividends or maximum bang for his buck, as it were. I get a feeling, I've not seen the details of this, but I get a feeling they were probably moving en masse. And when you move en masse, you prevent the chances of you escaping an attack from a terrorist because you provide the terrorist a very large target. Please remember, the smaller the target, the fast moving the target on a road, and the inconsistency of your activity on such kind of thing makes the terrorist more confused on what and when to target. Clearly, I would say, and I don't know what the findings will say, but my logical deductions say this was not happening there. And finally, and most importantly, we know, and we don't need to be told now after 30 years, that there is still a question mark on the role of Pakistan and its intelligence agencies on sponsoring attacks in Kashmir. It is not the Uzbeks who are going to do it. It is not the Iranians who are going to do it. It is not the Bangladeshis who are going to do it. It is Pakistan's sworn agenda to bleed us by 1,000 cuts. So let us cut out the waffle. Let us cut out the ambiguities. Let us cut out giving Pakistan the benefit of doubt, which our establishment and our intelligence agencies and our bureaucracies are notorious for giving Pakistan the benefit of doubt. And let us point the finger where the fault lies and get on now with becoming proactive and addressing the issues that what do you do after a blast like this? Don't weep over spilt milk, but get on with the whole action series that you need to do so that somebody else also weeps.
Yes, also it's very important for us to point out to our audience the difference right now between the CRPF, which is a police force, and the army. They both happen to be in uniform, they both happen to be deployed in Kashmir, but the manner of functioning is not necessarily the same. Colonel Amit joins us right now, former infantry officer. Colonel Amit, good evening, if you can hear me. This is my question to you. For the benefit of our for the benefit of our viewers, this was the CRPF, not the army, and there's a difference in the manner in which both agencies function on the ground. The CRPF doesn't perhaps have the same access to the same training and intelligence that the army has. Would you be able to clear this up for our audience? What is the difference between the functioning of the two agencies on the ground in Kashmir?
Firstly, I would like to say that the major difference in the functioning of CRPF and Army is that CRPF is for the internal security roles and Army is for the borders, and the Rashtriya Rifles are also employed in the counterinsurgency roles. By being there for a longer period of time, Army is better equipped in terms of intelligence and training to deal with the insurgents. However, I would like to bring one issue here, that for the past few days or months, Indian Army and the security forces have been having constant success against the terrorists. So a major strike to keep the morale of the terrorists who were inside Kashmir Valley was expected. And we should have been prepared, whether we are CRPF or whether we are Army, we should have prepared ourselves and we should have expected a major strike. And as Mr. Maroof sir has said, that such a long convoy moving naturally attracts it's a terrorist target. So we should have been much more careful while planning such a major move of troops, whether army or CRPF.
Absolutely. I just want to read out to our audience that we are, of course, getting reactions and, messages from across the world. We've got messages so far from Germany that has strongly condemned the attacks and said their thoughts are with the victims and their families. A message from France, from Bhutan, and other countries who have at this point stood in solidarity with India, given the loss that we have faced. Maruf Raza, when we say India, and there is a call right now, and you said as well that there has to be a united reaction to this. When we say India must have its revenge, what kind of revenge are we talking about? Are these surgical strikes? Are these strikes across the border? Is this a war-like situation at this point? Should we be more careful about the kind of language that is being used around this call for revenge?
Well, I think that's a very good question, Faye, because, I would put our responses in 3 or 4 categories. But the first category is that you brace yourself for more attacks within J&K, which, as I said earlier on your show, does not need to follow an identical pattern to this. But if they want to keep up the momentum of drawing public attention to the fact that Pakistan is keeping us on the run, they would try and monopolize the situation with other attacks, maybe a rocket launcher attack, maybe just short sniper attacks, maybe just attacking some posts in the cities and the streets, whatever. There would be more attacks of this kind, but not of the scale that we have seen. I don't think this is going to, that's a thumb rule of battling terrorism, that one major attack and you don't see the terrorists doing a similar identical attack anytime in the near future. But the second step is that you have to, and it doesn't have to be, I'll do this and then I'll do that. You have to have a simultaneous gearing up, and I'm pretty sure the Northern Command would be in a state of high alert. The government would be deliberating all options, and the best possible option to go for with Pakistan in a situation like that is short, swift, quick strikes on terror camps. You can't delay it too much. Please remember, I've made this point earlier on a show, not your show, but on the channel, that after 26/11, the Air Force was willing to give the government a success opportunity window within 48 hours if a decision
Mr. Raza, forgive me for interrupting you, but we have Satyapal Malik. Forgive me, Satyapal Malik, the governor of Jammu and Kashmir, on the phone line right now. Mr. Malik, good evening, and thank you for giving us your time. Would you be able to give us a status or an update of the situation on the ground in Kashmir in terms of security at this point?
Security, as far as security is concerned, we have lost a big number of our brave soldiers. We are very sad. Our feelings are with their families, and we are worried about the people the Jawans, the boys who are wounded. And total concern is that it should never be repeated. जो भी हमारी गलती हुई है, चूक हुई है, उसको हम सुधारेंगे, सिक्योरिटी रिव्यू करेंगे इन डे और 2, और हम ये मानते हैं कि इसलिए हुआ कि हमने 4 महीने में सक्सेसफुली टेररिज्म की कमर तोड़ दी थी, नई भर्ती नहीं हो रही थी, हर दिन 2-3 को हम डाउन कर रहे थे, पूरे चुनाव हो गए थे पार्लियामेंट, उसके असेंबली, म्यूनिसिपैलिटी के और पंचायत के, एक भी कैजुअलिटी नहीं हुई थी। तो इससे फ्रस्ट्रेट होकर पाकिस्तान ये चाहता था कि कोई बड़ा एक्शन इंडिया में होना चाहिए, और उसने सक्सेसफुली इसको करा दिया। ये हमारी गलती, भूल, चूक जो भी कही हुई है, उसके लिए मैं अपने आप को जिम्मेवार ठहराता हूँ।
मलिक साहब, क्या आप हमें ये बता सकते हैं कि एजेंसीज के रीडिंग के हिसाब से क्या ये इंटेलिजेंस की फेलियर थी?
नहीं, इंटेलिजेंस को जानकारी थी, इंटेलिजेंस ने बताया था, लेकिन फेलियर हुई हमारी जो हाईवे का चेकिंग था। एक एक्सप्लोसिव से भरी हुई गाड़ी हाईवे पे घूम रही है, हम उसको ट्रेस नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, वहां हमारी गलती हुई। दूसरे, इतना बड़ा कॉन्वॉय लेके नहीं निकला जाता है। जब आप सड़कों से गुजरते हैं तो आपकी गाड़ी की स्पीड ज्यादा होनी चाहिए, तब आईईडी नहीं कामयाब होती है, अगर स्लो चल रहे हैं तो आईईडी कामयाब होती है। तो कई चीजें थी जो हमारे लेवल पे गड़बड़ हुई है।
क्या आप हमें बता सकते हैं कि अभी इंटेलिजेंस एजेंसीज ने कहा कि इस तरह की और भी अटैक्स हो सकते हैं, तो
जी मुझे मालूम है, वो हमको इनपुट्स मिले हैं जगहों के भी, कहाँ कहाँ हो सकता है उसका हम केयर कर रहे हैं।
और हमें ये भी मालूम पड़ी है कि एनआईए की एक टीम आ रही है आपको असिस्ट करने के लिए।
जा रही है, जी जा रही है कल।
तो क्या आप बता सकते हैं कि अभी तक आपके पास क्या जानकारी है कि ये जो जितने सारे एक्सप्लोसिव थे, 100 किलो एक्सप्लोसिव या 300 किलो की एक्सप्लोसिव, ये बॉर्डर पार कैसे हुई और हाईवे तक कैसे पहुंची, इसके बारे में कोई जानकारी है आपके पास?
बॉर्डर पार करने की जरूरत नहीं, बॉर्डर से तो पैसा पार होता है और ये यहीं सब मैनेज हो जाता है। यहाँ इनके लोग बैठे हुए हैं, जिनको हवाला से रुपया आता है, वो इनकी मदद करते हैं। OGWs हैं, ओवरग्राउंड वर्कर्स हैं जो इनकी हेल्प करते हैं, ठहरने में हेल्प करते हैं, ऑब्जेक्ट आइडेंटिफाई करने में हेल्प करते हैं। और जब हम उन्हें पकड़ते हैं तो ये मेन स्ट्रीम की पार्टियां श्योर करती हैं कि बच्चे उठा लिए, ये पकड़ लिए, वो कर लिया। आप हम यहाँ बहुत कठिन परिस्थितियों में हम लोग काम कर रहे हैं, लेकिन हमने बहुत सक्सेसफुली कंटेन किया था और ये एक चूक हो गई जो हमारे लिए बड़ा कलंक है और जिसके लिए मैं शर्मिंदा हूँ।
मलिक साहब, क्या आप हमें बता सकते हैं कि ऑफिशियल डेथ टोल अभी इस वक्त कहां तक पहुंची है?
एग्जैक्ट मुझे नहीं मालूम, लेकिन जो टीवी और सब बता रहे हैं 40 के अराउंड है, इधर उधर एक दो।
और जिनकी अभी इंजरीज क्रिटिकल है, उनकी वो कहाँ अभी आर्मी हॉस्पिटल में है, श्रीनगर में है कि उनको दिल्ली मूव किया गया है?
जिसकी जैसी इंजरी है उसके मुताबिक उसको रखा गया, भेजा गया।
तो सीआरपीएफ के कितने जवानों को आपने दिल्ली शिफ्ट किया है अभी ट्रीटमेंट के लिए?
मुझे नहीं मालूम, मैं गलत बताऊं आपको।
और बाकी वैली में आपने क्या सिक्योरिटी मेजर्स तय की है मलिक साहब?
वैली में सिक्योरिटी अलर्ट है, फोर्सेस अपना काम कर रही हैं। कल राजनाथ जी को आना है, मैं जाऊंगा, हम लोग रीथ ले करने के लिए अपने शहीदों के ऊपर, तो वहाँ टोटल प्रॉपर इंतजाम होंगे सिक्योरिटी के।
ठीक, और एक और सवाल है आपसे कि अगर बाकी देश में से किसी ने ट्रैवल करने की प्लान की होगी श्रीनगर की तरफ या कश्मीर की तरफ, तो आपका अभी क्या एडवाइस है? डू यू एडवाइस पीपल टू नॉट कम टू कश्मीर एट दिस पॉइंट?
जरूर आए, यहाँ कोई अनसेफ नहीं है। यहाँ लड़ाई हमारे और टेररिस्टों के बीच में है, जनता के किसी आदमी को कोई खतरा नहीं है। आप देखिए, जितना आदमी पश्चिमी उत्तर प्रदेश के एक एक जिले में एक दिन में मरता है, उतना कश्मीर में एक हफ्ते में मरता है साधारण आदमी। यहाँ कुछ ऐसा खतरा नहीं है।
और मलिक साहब, ये सवाल पूछने में अफसोस होती है, आपने भी कहा कि लैप्सेस हुए हैं, भी हाईवे पेट्रोल में लैप्सेस हुए, चेकिंग में पेट्रोल हुए, और शायद the size of the contingent that or the convoy that was moving was also wrong. क्या इस इन्वेस्टिगेशन के बाद अकाउंटेबिलिटी होगी कि ये गलतियां किससे हुई थी और क्यों हुई थी?
नहीं, वो तो देखिए इंटर डिपार्टमेंट इंक्वायरी इसकी होगी, मुझे उस पर ओपिनियन नहीं देनी चाहिए, बट बिकॉज आई एम वेरी एजिटेटेड इसलिए मैंने दे दिया, अपनी बात राय कह दी है, क्योंकि मैं इस पे एक्सपर्ट भी नहीं हूँ, बट स्टिल आई फील कि ये ऐसा कर लेते तो ऐसा हो जाता।
और अभी सुनने को आया कि कश्मीर में लॉकडाउन हुआ है कि आपको लगता है कि लॉकडाउन कितनी देर तक चलेगी, और टेलीफोन्स और इंटरनेट की जो अभी स्पीड को कम किया हुआ है, ये कितनी देर तक चलेगी मिस्टर मालिक?
ये तो 1-2 दिन रहता है, ज्यादा कुछ नहीं होता है।
और अभी आप बाकी सिटीजन्स और सिविलियंस के लिए क्या एडवाइस रखते हैं जम्मू कश्मीर में?
नहीं, उनके लिए नॉर्मल सी है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है।
नॉर्मल सी है,
जी जी।
Okay, Mr. Malik, many thanks for joining us on the phone line. Satyapal Malik, the governor of Kashmir, there being very emotive with his response. He said very clearly that he is upset with the lapses that have taken place, that these things have obviously happened. And he made a very interesting comment there. He said it's happened with the connivance of people on this side of the border. They have people on this side of the border who have helped them with assembling the bomb, who have helped them with assembling the explosives. And he did say, of course, he accepted in lapses of highway, combing. He said the highway was not entirely sanitized, and the convoy that was moving was far too big and far too slow, making it an easy target. Maruf Raza, your reaction to the comments made by the governor of Kashmir. And I want to remind our viewers, Kashmir doesn't have an elected government at this point. It is Mr. Malik, the governor, who is running the state. Mr. Raza?
Yeah, the Honorable Governor has actually made very important assertions. In fact, you'll recall that just before that, I was saying more or less the same thing, that you don't move large convoys with such large number of troops in the manner that this was probably moving, presenting a huge target to any terrorist who is looking forward to make maximum bang for his buck. The second thing is, how was a vehicle with so much of explosive lurking around on a road when a road opening patrol is meant to look at every nala, every bush, every twist and turn on the road and clear it? These are clearly operational failures on the ground, and we cannot blame intelligence per se. What I'm saying is that there was a need to be on a state of alert when there were signs indicating of something big the Jaish-E-Mohammed was planning, whether it was explosives that were caught in various caches, whether it was warnings that Jaish-E-Mohammed was planning something, whether it was the success of the local elections which needed Pakistan to get back the initiative by telling the people of Kashmir that we are also players in the game. So there are various issues. But there was another point that I was responding to you to earlier when the Honorable Governor came in. One is, how do you respond? You certainly minimize the possibility of other attacks by fortifying all possible potential targets within J&K. The second thing is, you can go in for non-contact confrontation with Pakistan-occupied Kashmir in the areas where the terror camps exist. We have information of anything in the range of 40 or upwards terror camps. You can use your ability to do that through a variety of weapon systems and platforms without actually inducting troops. And if Pakistan is willing to escalate that, then that is Pakistan's choice. We have the capability of hitting them hard if they wish to escalate. I'm familiar, there's been a lot of noise in the public domain that, our air capacity, etc., is dwindling. But even now we have the edge.
Yes.
And if push comes to shove, there could be a possibility. And don't rule out the prospect of the ruling government using this possibility close to elections.
A very strong statement there being made by Maruf Raza. The other question we have to answer, and I'll come back to my panel of Mr. Verma and Colonel Amit to answer the question of accountability. But first, my colleague Sohail is on the phone line. Sohail's been on the ground on location where this blast happened today. That's where he spent most of the day. Sohail, what can you tell us as an update right now? One, of the death toll. Secondly, okay, we've lost Sohail and we'll try and get him back. Like we were telling our audience, of course, the phone lines and the internet speeds and things like that have actually been cut off in Kashmir at this point in order to keep the news under control. And as a result, it's becoming more and more difficult for us to reach our correspondents on the ground. But J.K. Verma, the question of accountability, which was raised by the Honorable Governor himself, he said there were lapses, but accountability will have to be a question of agencies and internal agency matters. Do you think that that would be enough?
First of all, I will say I perfectly agree with Mr. Maruf Raza that now we must take some conclusive action against the camps maintained in POK. And if Pakistan wants to go further, that is on its own peril. This is the first point. Secondly, as far as your question is concerned, I will say that all these things will come in the inquiry. Although I agree, if there is a fault, it should not be a fault because they are working in a very terrorist-infested area. Here, I will also like to point out one point, which is a practical thing. Several times once you are posted in these type of difficult areas, sometimes you become slack. I am not advocating that becoming slack is nice, is right. One should not be. But we have to give some leverage in this. Even in the intelligence operations also, sometimes we go little ahead than the point. Here, one thing more is important, that at present there is lot of problem is going on in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. And at this time, the Pakistan government, which is facing a dire economic crisis, they want to divert the attention of the public of POK as well as the public of Pakistan, and now they will again and again say that they have done such a big operation in Jammu and Kashmir. Here, one thing more, the deep state of Pakistan has given an idea to the Islamic terrorists there in Pakistan that sooner or later they are in the position to capture Kashmir, and the Kashmir will be mingled with Pakistan. So all these things, we have to see it in a larger perspective. Besides that, there is in Afghanistan also, talks are going on, and if American forces go back from Afghanistan, then there will be more terror attacks in India.
Yes.
So security forces should keep.
But let me take this back to the other guest, Colonel Amit. Do you agree with what J.K. Verma said, that given the fact that this is a challenging job, accountability, or there has to be room for errors? Because my concern is that errors in this case have costed us so far 44 lives in this singular case. Do you believe that there should be wiggle room for error making?
Actually, there can be no room for errors, because every error results in a cost of life and precious life of soldiers who are deployed in this area. We not only have to fix accountability for the lapses that have taken place, we also must draw lessons and ensure that the mistakes that have been committed, which have led to such a large-scale operations, successful operations by the terrorists, do not take place in future. And they have to be implemented ruthlessly. See, as he said, at times, because of the routine nature, because the troops are deployed in that area for a very long time, they do tend to get lax. And this is, as leaders, what we are supposed to do. We are supposed to ensure that at no stage this complacency sets in our functioning, and every day, every time we move out of our posts, or whenever we are in the post, we should always be prepared for a terrorist action. And if that is our attitude, we'll always ensure that we do not fall prey to such attacks. But in case we say we have a chalta hai type of attitude, then such attacks won't be the last one. Such an attack won't be the last one that has taken place.
Absolutely. Maruf Raza, I want to just come back to you, and you know, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the governor was kind enough to have a conversation with us at this very difficult time. Obviously, he's running that state. He accepted very candidly that there were lapses, and he listed out the lapses. He sounded upset with himself, actually, quite honestly. But then when I asked him about accountability, he said that unfortunately is about the specific agencies and their internal processes. Would you say that in this case, at least, accountability needs to be enforced or asked for with a little more force, because, like was pointed out, it costs us precious lives we cannot afford?
Absolutely. You know, what I've liked about Mr. Malik, both today and I've heard him live on an earlier event organized by Times Now in Delhi, he speaks from his heart. So he doesn't leave room for ambiguity and doesn't mince his words. Quite clearly, if he's talked about accountability, it is his job now to enforce accountability. I've always argued that Jammu and Kashmir is not a law and order situation, and therefore it doesn't need to be left to the civil administration and the police to handle it. It is a war zone. Wars today are not about large movement of aircrafts and tanks and air-land operation scenarios as you saw in the last Gulf War. Wars are largely going to be fought like this, with a whole lot of forces and irregulars constantly mixing in and out of public domain and public territory where people are involved. So it is an even more challenging job for the security forces. And therefore, I wish to make this point. Colonel Saab has also made that point, that, the army operates differently because the army is conscious of the fact that there is no room for error. Those of us who've served in the army have learned that, you don't get silver medals in war. You either win or you lose. So there is no chance for being second best. So you prepare to be best every time and every time. And as far as casualties are concerned, there are two types of casualties. One is that happens because of laxity or foolishness, which I would probably attribute to this attack that's happened here. Maybe I'm jumping the gun, but I think I would be proved right. And the other kind of casualties are inbuilt casualties that every military commander builds into his calculation. That you're going in for a kind of operation, whether it's cordon and search or a full-fledged attack or an objective, and what is the percentage of troops that you're likely to lose despite the best of planning. So if that kind of casualties happen, then nobody really can be blamed, because you win some, you lose some, you have to lose some lives to achieve your aim or your objective. Now we come on to the issue of where the army and the paramilitary forces can operate together or differently. We've been long enough in Kashmir, we've been long enough battling insurgencies all over the country to understand that the army has a very obsessive approach to training, accountability, and cohesiveness. Unfortunately, you go on the ground and talk to police and paramilitary personnel, their first grievance is their higher command and their higher officers are not bothered, uninformed, ill-trained, and indifferent to their grievances. No military commander on the ground worth his salt will eat a meal if his men haven't eaten. That's a simple example I'm giving you. So quite frankly, there is need for better understanding how to use our paramilitary forces on the ground in terms of how the army does it and army gets it right.
In fact, we have a few minutes left, and I just want to put this
on its flat foot.
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Raz, I want to put this out, and this is information that's just coming in. There is a letter, and we'll put it up on the screen. This is an internal note dated the 8th of February to various DIGs of the CRPF, including the Avantipur DIG, saying, this is what it reads: before occupying your place of deployment, please sanitize the area properly, as there are inputs of use of IED matter most urgent. Ends. And this is from the ORG signature, SSP, PC Kashmir, IG Kashmir Zone. So on the 8th of February, Mr. Raza, there was a note sent out to all it was an internal note sent out to all DIGs of the CRPF Kashmir, South, North, and various other districts, specifically saying sanitize areas because they have received information of the possible use of IEDs. So obviously, and now if we piece that together with what the governor just told us, there has been a terrible lapse.
Absolutely. There are two operative words in those instructions. One is sanitize, one is IED. Now, whether you sanitize the area you occupy or sanitize the route that you are going to follow, you just make sure that the possibility of explosives hitting you, and normally IEDs are used, and we've seen with our experience in Sri Lanka, by digging a hole on the ground, on the road a convoy is to pass, and putting the IEDs there with a kind of a mine arrangement which will help it blow up and blow the vehicle to smithereens. But in this case, the IED essentially stands for improvised explosive device, which is basically a dirty bomb. And you just assemble it with all the capability that you have, and you just ram it into the vehicle. And it's not that we are facing it. I mean, the first time this kind of stuff came to light was in the 80s when the American troops faced a massive attack of explosives loaded on a truck in the American camp in Beirut. And it led to America's decision to pull out of Beirut. But I don't think we are going to pull out of this thing. Please remember, Pakistan always adopts
one quick question, if I may.
That it picks up from the
Yes, one quick question, and the viewers of this channel are civilians, we're lay people, we don't understand this. You did say, of course, that an improvised explosive device is what IED refers to, which means that it was haphazardly put together. This is not state-of-the-art. When we talk about 100 kgs, and someone else mentioned 300 kgs of this sort of explosive material, how much space are we talking that, what kind of space would that occupy? In one car, would it be possible to move that car on the highway without being noticed? Because this, like you said, is not a sophisticated device. This is an improvised device. Could you give us an idea of what this would look like, Mr. Raza?
Well, it is essentially a lot of explosives that have been tied together with activation equipment which is there with it and which is probably connected to the car's own engine mechanism in a way that when it makes impact with a flat surface, the impact goes down to the explosives and the explosives then blow up in bits and pieces. Now, ideally, 300 kgs would take up a lot of space in a vehicle. But the fact of the matter is, a kilo of explosives, it takes up much lesser space than a kilo of cotton, for example. So clothing or cotton would take up a lot more space than explosive would. So it is possible. I don't know where they've got this figure of 300, 350 kilograms of explosive, unless the guy who died and left this film for us to see, he has said that I used 300 kilos. I think 300 kilos is a bit over the top.
Yes.
But you can have massive impact with anything in the range of 50 to 100 kilos upwards. And thereafter, and the explosives can be loaded at various parts of a vehicle, even under the seats. I mean, we remember 2611, that some of the explosive that Kasab and his gang were carrying were left under the seats of the taxis that shuttled them from one place to another unknowingly, and they left the explosives, and the taxi driver, when they dropped them, blew up himself because the explosive was on a ticker and a time bomb. So yes, all those things are possibilities. NIA is best placed to really tell us how the whole thing evolved. But quite clearly, this was a very, very large scale, well-planned, well-studied operation based on inputs that they had received about the possible target. The location was reconnoitered, the pattern of activity was studied, and therefore the attack was laid. And every military operation, anybody who's operated in insurgency will tell you that you are hit when your guard is the least effective. And they were waiting for this opportunity. I think the commanders on the ground need to take responsibility for this lapse. Let us not blame the higher-ups. The higher-ups would have given directions, may not have given directions. But please remember, counterinsurgency operations are the operations of middle and junior level commanders. General officers and IGs and DGs give you the big picture. They set out the zones, they set out the strategy, but it's down to the blood and guts of middle level people who have to get it right every time.
Yes. A quick question to Colonel Amit, and I'm going to put that internal note on the screen again for our viewers who might have missed it. An internal note sent to the DIG, all of the DIGs, in fact, of the CRPF operating in Kashmir, telling them very clearly to sanitize any area or post before they occupy it because of information they've received of IEDs being used to attack in Kashmir. Do you believe this is evidence that perhaps the work was not being done or they have in fact been lapses, Colonel Amit?
I agree that there have been lapses, especially a vehicle was allowed to lurk around that area, a Scorpio full of explosives. Anything that we have been saying that from 100 to 350 kgs, I think a Scorpio can easily take 100 kg explosive to a lethal effect. And if this vehicle was allowed to move around in that area, in addition to the road opening parties, there must have been posts in that area which routinely check vehicles moving on the road. So it is surprising that this vehicle could pass all these checkposts. This vehicle could avoid the road opening party and was able to hit a vehicle of the convoy. So there have been lapses, and I'm sure we'll ensure a proper inquiry and investigations will be carried into the lapses that have taken place, and suitable measures will be taken to ensure that such lapses do not take place in future.
Right. We are going to leave it here at this point, and I want to thank our guests for being very patient with the questions that we have asked and very patient with your views. I'm sure our viewers have appreciated the calm conversation that has that we've had at on this channel for the last couple of hours. I did have the opportunity to speak with the governor of Kashmir, and I want to point out to our viewers again, Kashmir is under governor's rule, so this is the man who's currently running the state, and he was very candid about the lapses that could have led to this terrible, terrible incident. Listen in. Satyapal Malik, the governor of Jammu and Kashmir, on the phone line right now. Mr. Malik, good evening, and thank you for giving us your time. Would you be able to give us a status or an update of the situation on the ground in Kashmir in terms of security at this point?
Security, as far as security is concerned, we have lost a big number of our brave soldiers. We are very sad. Our feelings are with their families. And we are worried about the people the Jawans, the boys who are wounded. And total concern is that it should never be repeated. जो भी हमारी गलती हुई है, चूक हुई है, उसको हम सुधारेंगे, सिक्योरिटी रिव्यू करेंगे इन डे और टू. और हम ये मानते हैं कि इसलिए हुआ कि हमने 4 महीने में सक्सेसफुली टेररिज्म की कमर तोड़ दी थी, नई भर्ती नहीं हो रही थी, हर दिन 2-3 को हम डाउन कर रहे थे, पूरे चुनाव हो गए थे पार्लियामेंट उसके असेंबली म्यूनिसिपैलिटी के और पंचायत के, एक भी कैजुअलिटी नहीं हुई थी. तो इससे फ्रस्ट्रेट होकर पाकिस्तान ये चाहता था कि कोई बड़ा एक्शन इंडिया में होना चाहिए और उसने सक्सेसफुली इसको करा दिया. ये हमारी गलती, भूल, चूक जो भी कही हुई है उसके लिए मैं अपने आप को जिम्मेवार ठहराता हूँ.
मलिक साहब, क्या आप हमें ये बता सकते हैं कि एजेंसीज के रीडिंग के हिसाब से क्या ये इंटेलिजेंस की फेलियर थी?
नहीं, इंटेलिजेंस को जानकारी थी, इंटेलिजेंस ने बताया था, लेकिन फेलियर हुई हमारी जो हाईवे का चेकिंग था. एक एक्सप्लोसिव से भरी हुई गाड़ी हाईवे पे घूम रही है, हम उसको ट्रेस नहीं कर पा रहे, वहां हमारी गलती हुई. दूसरे, इतना बड़ा कॉन्वॉय लेके नहीं निकला जाता है. जब आप सड़कों से गुजरते हैं तो आपकी गाड़ी की स्पीड ज्यादा होनी चाहिए, तब आईडी नहीं कामयाब होती है. अगर स्लो चल रहे हैं तो आईडी कामयाब होती है. तो कई चीजें थी जो हमारे लेवल पे गड़बड़ हुई है.
क्या आप हमें बता सकते हैं कि अभी इंटेलिजेंस एजेंसीज ने कहा कि इस तरह की और भी अटैक्स हो सकते हैं? तो
जी, मुझे मालूम है, वो हमको इनपुट्स मिले हैं जगहों के भी, कहाँ हो सकता है उसका हम केयर कर रहे हैं.
और हमें ये भी मालूम पड़ी है कि एनआईए की एक टीम आ रही है आपको असिस्ट करने के लिए.
जी जा रही है कल.
तो क्या आप बता सकते हैं कि अभी तक आपके पास क्या जानकारी है कि ये जो जितने सारे एक्सप्लोसिव थे, 100 किलो एक्सप्लोसिव या 300 किलो की एक्सप्लोसिव, ये बॉर्डर पार कैसे हुए और हाईवे तक कैसे पहुंची, इसके बारे में कोई जानकारी है आपके पास?
बॉर्डर पार करने की जरूरत नहीं, बॉर्डर से तो पैसा पार होता है और ये यही सब मैनेज हो जाता है. यहाँ इनके लोग बैठे हुए हैं, जिनको हवाला से रुपया आता है, वो इनकी मदद करते हैं. OGWs हैं, ओवरग्राउंड वर्कर्स हैं जो इनकी हेल्प करते हैं, ठहरने में हेल्प करते हैं, ऑब्जेक्ट आइडेंटिफाई करने में हेल्प करते हैं. और जब हम उन्हें पकड़ते हैं तो ये मेन स्ट्रीम की पार्टियां श्योर करती हैं कि बच्चे उठा लिए, ये पकड़ लिए, वो कर लिया. अब यहाँ बहुत कठिन परिस्थितियों में हम लोग काम कर रहे हैं, लेकिन हमने बहुत सक्सेसफुली कंटेन किया था. और ये एक चूक हो गई जो हमारे लिए बड़ा कलंक है और जिसके लिए मैं शर्मिंदा हूँ.
मलिक साहब, क्या आप हमें बता सकते हैं कि ऑफिशियल डेथ टोल अभी इस वक्त कहां तक पहुंची है?
एग्जैक्ट मुझे नहीं मालूम, लेकिन जो टीवी और सब बता रहे हैं 40 के अराउंड है, इधर उधर 1-2.
और जिनकी अभी इंजरीज क्रिटिकल है, उनकी वो कहाँ अभी आर्मी हॉस्पिटल में है, श्रीनगर में है कि उनको दिल्ली मूव किया गया है?
जिसकी जैसी इंजरी है उसके मुताबिक उसको रखा गया, भेजा गया.
तो CRPF के कितने जवानों को आपने दिल्ली शिफ्ट किया है अभी ट्रीटमेंट के लिए?
मुझे नहीं मालूम, मैं गलत बताऊं आपको.
और बाकी वैली में आपने क्या सिक्योरिटी मेजर्स तय किए हैं मलिक साहब?
वैली में सिक्योरिटी अलर्ट है, फोर्सेस अपना काम कर रही हैं. कल राजनाथ जी को आना है, मैं जाऊंगा, हम लोग रीथ ले करने के लिए अपने शहीदों के ऊपर. तो वहाँ टोटल प्रॉपर इंतजाम होंगे सिक्योरिटी के.
ठीक। और एक और सवाल है आपसे कि अगर बाकी देश में से किसी ने ट्रैवल करने की प्लान की होगी श्रीनगर की तरफ या कश्मीर की तरफ, तो आपका अभी क्या एडवाइस है? डू यू एडवाइस पीपल टू नॉट कम टू कश्मीर एट दिस पॉइंट?
जरूर आए, यहाँ कोई अनसेफ नहीं है। यहाँ लड़ाई हमारे और टेररिस्टों के बीच में है, जनता के किसी आदमी को कोई खतरा नहीं है। आप देखिए जितना आदमी पश्चिमी उत्तर प्रदेश के एक एक जिले में एक दिन में मरता है, उतना कश्मीर में एक हफ्ते में मरता है साधारण आदमी। यहाँ कुछ ऐसा खतरा नहीं है।
और मलिक साहब, ये सवाल पूछने में अफसोस होती है, आपने भी कहा कि लैप्सेस हुए हैं, भी हाईवे पेट्रोल में लैप्सेस हुए, चेकिंग में पेट्रोल हुए, और शायद the size of the contingent that or the convoy that was moving was also wrong. क्या इस इन्वेस्टिगेशन के बाद अकाउंटेबिलिटी होगी कि ये गलतियां किससे हुई थी और क्यों हुई थी?
नहीं, वो तो देखिए इंटर डिपार्टमेंट इंक्वायरी इसकी होगी, मुझे उस पर ओपिनियन नहीं देनी चाहिए, बट बिकॉज आई एम वेरी एजिटेटेड इसलिए मैंने दे दिया अपनी बात, राय कह दी है, क्योंकि मैं इस पे एक्सपर्ट भी नहीं हूँ, बट स्टिल आई फील कि ये ऐसा कर लेते तो ऐसा हो जाता।
और अभी सुनने को आया कि कश्मीर में लॉकडाउन हुआ है, कि आपको लगता है कि लॉकडाउन कितनी देर तक चलेगी, और टेलीफोन्स और इंटरनेट की जो अभी स्पीड को कम किया हुआ है, ये कितनी देर तक चलेगी मिस्टर मालिक?
ये तो 1-2 दिन रहता है, ज्यादा कुछ नहीं होता है।
और अभी आप बाकी सिटीजन्स और सिविलियंस के लिए क्या एडवाइस रखते हैं जम्मू कश्मीर में?
नहीं, उनके लिए नॉर्मल सी है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है।
नॉर्मल सी है।
जी जी।
Okay, Mr. Malik, many thanks for joining us on the phone lines.